It's almost like
Cost to have one of those. All right, go ahead and get started. Natalie is going to be a little bit late. We'll call to order and start with our Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board's purpose. The board will govern lawfully with an emphasis on outward vision rather than internal preoccupation, diversity in viewpoints, and sufficient understanding of issues, strategic leadership more than administrative detail, clear distinction of board and chief executive roles, collective rather than individual decisions, future rather than past or present, and proactivity rather than reactivity. Can we get a roll call?
Yes. Johnson. Here. Moen.
Here.
Sharon.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Vidovich.
Here. Hold on, I have to update my board docs. I get a motion to approve the agenda. Can
So move.
I get a second?
Second.
Johnson. Aye. Moen. Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Vidovich.
Aye. Does not look like we have any public comment this evening, correct? Correct. Excellent. Let's move on to the consent agenda, which has our regular meeting minutes, special meeting minutes, personnel, and policy revision. Can I get a motion?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second? Second. Votes?
Johnson.
Aye.
Moen.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Vidovich.
Aye. Superintendent's report. Budget.
Oh, by the way, if I could share with other board members, Jackie Powell is our principal for Ute Pass Elementary School.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Jackie?
Hi. Thank you. Over here. Thank you for the two clap.
I know you've got big shoes to fill.
I certainly do. Hawaii big shoes. My name is Jackie Powell. Super excited to be here. I taught special ed, gen ed, and then came out to Colorado in 2014 and was at Harrison and Mount Vista Community School. And I was an interventionist and reading and sped coach. And then was an assistant principal in my field for 2 years before being hired a week before COVID hit as a principal at Sunrise Elementary, where I've been for the last 2 years. So very excited. I live in the UPass community in Cascade and very excited to give back and
Wonderful
serve a
neighborhood.
school I love. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
All right, so I just want to give a quick update. It's still pretty early with our projections from the state, but want to keep you guys in the loop. So. Vibrated. Okay,
Connect to the middle.
so just a quick timeline of the budget process this school year.
Gus says he's good.
Okay, so this month we're starting to do all of our preliminary budget planning. So we've got more and more information comes out a lot more frequently this time of year. Working with the Colorado School Finance Project, CDE, and then our Pikes Peak Alliance, just to get insight. Next week, Kendall and I are going to meet with Hub, our insurance broker, to start our insurance planning for next year. They're in the process of running some numbers and looking at market. And then we'll meet with them next week. And then the DAC subcommittee for salary and compensation is going to present at the April board meeting. In May, we have our proposed budget that we'll present to you all with what we know at the time. And then if anything's coming up afterwards, that's how we'll base off the adopted budget. We will present our compensation recommendations based off of DAC recommendations and your feedback and what we know with the School Finance Act. We'll come up with our budget, our salary and compensation, and present those to you. We like to do this in May, which is a little tough because it's right before the adopted budget, but we want to get contracts out to our staff before the school year is up. And then in June, we will have our adopted budget to you all. So right now, we have some drafts from the Long Bill and the Joint Budget Committee, and it's changed since then, but we'll start here. It's still very early. Everything is really optimistic, but things could change, and they actually did go down a little bit from this. Their big strategy is to, over 2 years, to eliminate the budget stabilization factor, doing 50% next year and then 50% the following year. Since this has come out, they have decided that that's a little too aggressive. It was supposed to be a $251 million cut in this first year, and now it's projected to be a $185 million cut. So still a substantial cut to the overall picture, but not quite what they were thinking. Our per pupil currently this year is at just over 9,000, and it was going to go up to 97.49, but with the current or the more updated numbers, it's going to be at 9,669. Still significant.
So it's about a 6% bump. So almost keeping up with inflation.
Almost. So that's the big thing, and that's the main reason why they changed from the 251 to the 185 is there was the fear of inflation growing. And then the student counts across the state are lower than projected. So those two things made them to step back a little bit on their overall.
Do they know, are they attributing that? I think that's the big thing. Everybody's looking at micro, but macro across the state. Where are students going? Are they moving out of state? Are we looking at homeschool? Are we looking at unschooling and kids are just in campgrounds with rocks and sticks? What, I mean,
I think as far as I've heard, it's still kind of that big mystery.
But we do know secondary is more going towards online options. And the per pupil for online is quite significant. So we know it costs more to have a student be in person, but the per pupil for online is pretty close. It's not too
Like 7,000.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at those lately because we don't have online, so.
So
some-
I'm sure just about that. So kids that are in the district that are doing online, because there are some kids doing that. So they're just doing like some other school that's just online, then I would assume, or
like if one of our.
sorry to interrupt, I
No,
apologize.
no, you're good.
If a student who is not enrolled in our school district is in an online school system in another district, then that school district gets that per pupil, but it's
Okay.
still at like 7, it's significant.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so just like D49 has an online school. So if they're going to one of those schools, then they get that online funding, which is just not, it's high, just not as much as.
Right.
But if they're doing like last year when students were doing fuel ed with us, that was still fell under regular enrollment
Okay.
because of COVID. So some concerns I have, I mean, this is great news, but the number one thing for us is enrollment. And we've seen that decline the past couple of years. So really just trying to see where we're gonna fall at because that'll offset some of that increase. We should have some more solid numbers in the next couple of weeks, really getting an idea of where we are at there.
I can give you some updates now, just pulling up those numbers, seats that we currently have for students either in district or Joyce is looking at about 1273. In years previous to COVID, it was 1450. But we know that there's several students, and this is early in the time frame. So we're on track with our folks, our individuals who have applied to be here. We are seeing still low numbers in elementary school and in kindergarten and first grade.
And most of it, interestingly, we're getting a fair amount of choice, but we're not, and I don't know if it's just timing, we're not getting in-district applicants. So right now we have 4 in-district kindergartners and we have probably, I don't know, 30 choice applicants. So
Sorry.
yes.
Yeah, no, because we've been talking about demographics in Manitou Springs and, 9% of families in Manitou are families of 4. And the average home size in Manitou is 1.8. It's not even 2. And so I think that the average age 43, I mean, like,
No
there's a
little people.
reason,
Yes.
there's a reason that we're seeing what we're seeing.
And we've seen that, and that's, I think, a big reason why our choice percentage has continued to grow because we don't have as many of those in-district students.
Housing market is unbelievable as well for young
The
families.
short-term rentals aren't helping. They're reducing.
So we're on track right now with our number of applicants, but we're just monitoring closely.
The other one is the budget stabilization factor. That's the one thing in the School Finance Act that they can kind of play around with. And so they can say that they're decreasing it, but if something comes up, they can always add that back. So yes, it's going to go down this year, but can they sustain that? And that's the one concern I have because a large part of our increases go to ongoing compensation increases. And so with that, if then they're going to turn around and increase the budget stabilization factor again, then we may run into some issues.
Once they set it, there's not a mechanism, excuse me, for them to change it
Not in that,
within that time, within that budget year.
unless they had to do a rescission.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the past couple of years, we've gotten some money with ESSER and CARES that have done some great things. A lot of it was used for very specific COVID purposes. I mean, that CARES money at the very beginning was all PPE and barriers and everything like that. But we've done some good things with ESSER, a lot of new technology, and now we just have to keep up with that. And then the other one is a huge bummer. We just found out that the federal school lunch program is going away. I'm not sure if anything has fallen up on the state level. There was still some push there to get that going, but the federal funding for that's going away. And like I've said before, Paul and her team have been just serving lunches like crazy. I've never seen so many students stay at the high school to eat as I have in this year. So kind of a bummer there. We get funded a lot more significant from that than from what we charge.
So what will that, how will that impact us, say if that goes away?
So if that goes away, then we'd go back to just having to charge students for both breakfast and lunch. We charge them probably, I don't know off the top of my head, like $1.25 less than what we get reimbursed for per meal. And our counts go down, or were down before. Hopefully with some changes in what they've done because of it, hopefully the counts still stay up, but we just don't get as much per meal. Just a reminder, these are some of the benefits as we're meeting with Hub. There's the district funded benefits, so that's para, our health insurance options, life insurance. And then this year we're looking at adding short-term and long-term disability. It's something that we don't cover here that is unique. We're, according to Hub, out of all of the school districts specifically that they work with, we're the only one that does not provide short and long-term disability. And then employees have the option to have vision, dental, AFLAC, and then they can have some different retirement options.
Are you looking at increase in healthcare?
We're not sure yet. The last meeting Kendall and I had with them, our claims that they had at that point were low. We had a really high year last year, but they looked good this year. So as long as that trending is going well, I think that we should be keeping a pretty low increase.
You hate to really, were to impact and give an increase that it offsets
Exactly.
greater than what they did.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm hoping it's not significant. It didn't sound like it would be, but we should know that in the next week. And then just, you've seen this slide before, I just added what we did last year. As a reminder, last year, we increased the number of days for our certified staff from 179 to 181, and they got the daily rate for that. And then we gave a 4% flat to everybody, and then fixed those significant discrepancies of, I think it was the 12 to 15 year masters plus 0. There was just some that were significantly off from other people. So I think that affected 17 teachers. Then this year, what we're working on in DAC, and you'll hear more about it in the April meeting, is really now focusing on classified. Last year, we dove into the certified group, and then this year finding some areas in classified and finding discrepancies there. We are going to be working on that, finalizing that plan next week at our meeting, and then we'll present to you in April. And then continue with the flat percentage for all district staff. And then we have some ongoing compensation for next year for DAC. Questions?
Nice job.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah, really good.
Right, looking at policy JLC, first reading.
So we just added the updates from the conversation of merging JLC and the other policy that will retire. So just posted that there. If there are any changes, then move forward with the first reading.
And it looked like everything was captured in there to me. Anybody else? Jack, I know you had a keener eye on it.
No, it's good.
Okay.
I move to adopt the first reading of policy JLC.
Second.
Vote.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Vidovich.
Aye. And looking at the cornucopia of JLCGA and GLBAC policies. Any comment on them?
No changes from Colleen's.
Okay. Excellent. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
And a vote.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Vidovich.
Aye. Thank you.
Just one follow-up comment. I think it's great the way you work with children to kind of get that stuff together, because it's good when there's experts in the community. It's great to use them and because of women to be good partners, and so they're good job on
Yeah, so legislative updates, just a couple of things. I think you guys have seen the newspapers and I've sent out a couple articles. And that's all judicial review about school boards and school board interactions, practices that maybe were okay prior have really been ruled on as problematic. So that needs to, again, be heeded by all of us. I mean, goes without saying, but to make sure that we understand that some of those rules that were maybe iffy behaviors, but that were not considered illegal are. So especially talking about content, it's always okay to talk about dates, process, that sort of thing, but talking about contents or anything that leads to a decision. Or I've been introduced to the term daisy chaining in the conversation. So like Natalie and I have a conversation and then I call Gary and say, Natalie and I had a conversation and we both think this and you should think this type of thing is a huge no-no. That's tantamount to a meeting. So we just, again, all the things that I've been reading and just boards and behavior. And as you well know, things that are corrugable, so that corrigal has become a verb. And we fortunately have not made the papers, and that's nice, except for positive things that the district's doing. And so especially us as a board. So I'd like to keep it that way. You know, if you, again, I probably do read, I keep up with it probably even more. But it's nationwide, but certainly in the Pikes Peak region, it's not pretty either. So that's my legislative update. Other items?
I just have to update around para and that this is one of the bills that has been moved forward, that para retirees can work beyond the number of designated days just because we have a shortage of teachers. I wish it included special service providers, but it doesn't. I could imagine that in future legislation it would, but this one has moved forward. So a para retiree doesn't have to work the 1/10 or the approved 1/30.
What does it cover?
It covers just for teachers.
Yeah,
just
just
teachers. So that's sort of the bigger one going on right now with that's already moved forward.
I am surprised there's not more.
I think that in the next couple of days, in next weeks, there will be more that'll come.
Right. I mean, it's a late hiring season right now.
Where does daisy chaining come from? I've
Where-
never heard
I
of it.
actually know.
So do you know what, do you not know what a daisy chain is? Like when you take
I don't know
daisies
much.
and you kind of like split a little piece and then you put a daisy through another daisy and you make like a floral chain. Hello? Did you not, were you not like the worst soccer player and have to sit back by the goalpost
I was
when
gonna
you
say
were little? Like, right? Yeah, same thing.
Also,
I went to public school that did not focus on the arts, so that's my loss.
Oh, okay.
principals oftentimes in fire reports, inspections get.
Oh, that's, yeah, for the extension cords.
Cords and
Oh, yeah.
functions.
We never do that at the arts.
Education,
So
yeah, I
you
love
can
that.
daisy chain actual daisies, or it could be all kinds of fun things. So yes, that is that whole little thing. I just thought it was more applicable to boards. Board self-reflection, I think this is a good time to applaud ourselves for being so efficient. And so we can think about this when we decide in June if we like doing the 2 meetings a month or not, because remember we said we would set that just for a time period, and then we'll see how we like it upon reflection. I have some things just to think about for the work session. Our work session coming up, we have yet to really talk about and dive into superintendent evaluations. We talked about, we're going to look at that. So I will bring some research forward to that work session. I'd like you to, if you want to do that as well. I'll bring both some research articles as well as some templates. I think we need to also talk about what is a formative evaluation. I am going to trust that you all have met with Elizabeth as we discussed for your private meetings within the last month and a half, I think it's been. I need to, at that point, talk about the June retreat, about what that's going to look like, and ask to change the date. I will be out of town.
I'm gonna be out of town.
Okay, perfect. Love it. Good job, Natalie. It's not just about me.
Well,
I appreciate that.
It was up in the air and then I'm like, nope.
Okay, good. So we'll talk about dates and times and what we want that to look like. So appreciate that. We probably need to look at your contract, and I know not everybody on the board has seen your most current contract, and I could not find it. And 1,000 emails or more that I keep in that account.
Sure.
And then policy work, taking a look at, we probably want to look at some of, since we discussed the grievance policy, look at other districts and see how they handle that in the region. And kind of see what makes sense for us. Everybody okay with those? Those seem to be things that we had talked about and we need to circle back to. Yeah.
Sounds good. Our next meeting is April 7th. Is that right? Just to make sure I've got that correct. Is our
That is
first
great
session?
because I have family in town, so I won't have to have dinner with them that night.
Wow.
They're not watching this meeting, so it doesn't matter.
They can watch it later.
They don't care.
Popcorn.
They don't care.
You have a phone number for
Yeah,
them?
they know. They
Is
know.
that correct? April 7th?
Yeah,
April
April
7th.
7th, yeah.
Yep.
We also have for an update on the lease purchase
Okay.
update that we'll provide, and then also some updates around just movement around youth pass BOCES. And then those were the two items, and I did have the policies discussion. as
Excellent,
well.
thank you.
Did the preamble for this survey, did you and Elizabeth find?
Yeah, we did, and I think it just captures very broadly, just thank you from all of us that we want and how important it is and the anonymity and the seriousness of taking that feedback so we can move forward with it.
That goes up next week, tomorrow, okay.
And I did a draft for the community, maybe you and I can.
Yeah.
I don't think we never said the community was coming out tomorrow, so if y'all are okay, I think we have a little bit more time to get that.
You want that?
And the community part's not hardwired into our district plan that we did last year,
Exactly.
whereas the staff and students and guardians.
Other board reflection?
Couple things. One, so if our work sessions do tend to be our longer meetings, I think we have the wrong snacks at the wrong meeting.
Oh,
This is like big. Don't you think? I mean, this is like, we're gonna be in and out in 25 minutes. I need the snacks at the long meeting.
Yes.
we can flip flop that,
Yeah.
because actually this meeting is later, I have time to stop and get something on the way, whereas the 4:30 meeting, I'm flying across town and
Do we have to vote on that?
I don't think so, I don't think. I
Since it
mean,
wasn't part of the agenda. I just
Let's make
wanted
it
to-
policy. Let's make it policy about snacks. Then we'll make the news.
Yeah, and then I was gonna say, and speaking of news, that was gonna be my other thing, is that, so the Pikes Peak Bulletin has had a really hard time
Yes.
replacing the gals who was just doing such a great job reporting before, and so they're just actively looking for. It's cute, Rhonda was like, can you just take the minutes and tell me? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I think it's a really bad idea.
We have a journalism class at the
Yeah,
high
we
school, and could
yeah,
we get some,
what happened
we
in
have some
the meeting.
students maybe take the notes and then they could publish?
Oh, I think Rhonda's up for creative.
I mean, this would be a great pathway.
I think so.
No, seriously.
I agree.
Okay.
It'd be original.
No, I
Yeah,
agree.
I would love
Or
that.
we can
Yeah.
put.
And then authentically, not just
Yeah, I
like,
don't
hey,
think
so
so.
listening to the old people.
Wouldn't that be approved?
Because I was been like, that's lame.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
connect Rhonda with our journalism teacher.
And they would pay, I mean, they would
Yeah.
pay.
Yeah, and they could maybe
Oh, even better.
rotate or get a couple people.
And through the Pikes
Eight
Peak Business
internship.
Alliance.
Yeah.
Did you just say that?
That's what you-
Des and I are just sitting back here waiting for her.
If nothing else, then I can,
Legacy.
indeed, could change lives.
That's all.
I can touch base with Miss Carey.
That'd be awesome.
I think you got a retiring principal.
I feel like he's going to find Flynn.
Thanks. Some of the questions, a couple things came to the board via email, one from staff and one from a parent. And we don't need any details on that, but just to make sure that our policy is being followed with taking care of those from a district level. So we know that that's happening since
Yeah.
they felt it was important enough to send the board emails directly.
Yes, those are happening.
Okay, great.
Yes. Once there's some summary, then I'll forward on that.
Okay. Perfect.
Thanks. Hey, you guys said you want to do the next 2 meetings short, so anything else, don't hold back.
I'm just gonna say I'm amazed.
This is the first one though.
Okay. Well, we had to get
It's not
into a
quite
routine.
right.
We had to get into a routine.
I'm waiting
right?
to see if it actually happens.
All right, well, it's really person dependent there, Gus.
And issue dependent. I understand. I'm just saying, I'm in uncharted waters, so.
I mean, we also don't want to leave things untouched that need to
So
be.
you know what
Without-
we've proven by this?
What?
It can be done.
It can be done. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Smith.
Right.
Fidovich.
See, if they all were this short, people would be like, well, what are you guys even doing? Why do we have
Go
so?
back once a month.
So you're saying
Yeah, I
that's.
know. It's funny, like-